Hello, I'm Larry Wilson. Please join me in this seminar on the prophetic importance of 1798, 1844, and 1994. This is part 1 of 6. I would like to begin with an idea that you may find unusual. When it comes to Bible prophecy, most people think future telling. But future telling is only a small part of Bible prophecy. When properly understood, Bible prophecy reveals the love, the plans, the character, the ways, and the government of God in an orderly way. Bible prophecy provides insight into God that is not otherwise available. God wants us to understand His love and His kindness toward us. God wants us to understand His abiding interest in us. And God also wants us to understand how and why things are the way they are. And God wants us to understand what He has done and what He plans to do to resolve the problem with sin and save the maximum number of people. There is so much to understand and admire about God and His love for sinners. And the key to this information, the key to this understanding, is Bible prophecy. Many people do not realize there are 5 types of prophecy in the Bible, and each type is different from the others. Also, each type of prophecy has its own rules or laws that govern interpretation. I'll say more about the rules of interpretation later on, but for now, consider these 5 types of prophecy. Number 1, there are messianic prophecies. These are prophecies pertaining to the birth, ministry, death, and the kingdom of Jesus. Number 2, there are Judaic prophecies. These prophecies pertain to the calling and purposes which God had for ancient Israel. There are Day of the Lord prophecies. These are prophecies that have to do with the defeat of God's enemies and the vindication of His people. Number 4, there are local prophecies. Prophecies that pertain to specific places and moments in time, such as Noah's flood or the warning given by Jonah that God was going to destroy Nineveh in 40 days. And last, there are apocalyptic prophecies. These prophecies explain how and when God will resolve and conclude the sin problem. The only books in the Bible that contain apocalyptic prophecies are Daniel and Revelation, and the 4 rules that govern the interpretation of these prophecies were sealed up in the book of Daniel around 550 BC. Apocalyptic prophecy is unlike the other 4 types of prophecy in that it always unfolds in chronological order. For reasons that will be forthcoming, I believe that 1798, 1844, and 1994 are prophetically important dates. These dates are found in apocalyptic prophecy, and when properly understood, they tell us that something very big is about to happen. The spring of 1798 is prophetically important because the Bible indicates this is when Jesus was found worthy to receive the book, sealed with 7 seals. The spring of 1844 is important because the Bible indicates this is when Jesus broke open the 3rd seal on the book sealed with 7 seals. And the spring of 1994 is important because the Jubilee calendar came to an end in April of that year. Yes, the termination of the Jubilee calendar brings to an end the rule where time is translated a day for a year. All prophetic time periods occurring after 1994 are to be treated as literal time because the Jubilee calendar does not function after April of 1994. To appreciate the importance of these three dates, 1798, 1844, and 1994, several things have to be discussed. The first thing we need to discuss is the linkage between events in heaven with events on earth. God has done a wonderful thing so that we can locate our chronological position within His plan. Because human beings cannot see events taking place in heaven, God has linked several key events in heaven with important events on earth. I like to call this linkage the heaven-earth linkage law, and the idea behind it is very simple. Events in heaven align with events on earth. Here's an event in heaven, here's an event on earth. And you see time is marching forward, and so God has enabled us to see what is going on in heaven, even though we can't see there, by looking for events, prophetic fulfillments on earth. It's the heaven-earth linkage law. Of course, the challenge is this: discovering A, which events are in heaven, B, which events are on earth, and C, the timing of these events. All of this is quite a challenge. So let's get to work on what happened in 1798. Let's see what God did in heaven that year and how things on earth line up. We begin in Daniel 2 with a vision given to King Nebuchadnezzar. In a nutshell, this is the story. One night, during the 6th century B.C., God revealed to the king of Babylon there would be a succession of 6 empires on earth before Jesus would set up a 7th kingdom that would never end. 6 of these empires were represented by the figure of a metal man. We know today the head represented the kingdom of Babylon, which existed from 605 to 538 B.C., and then the chest of silver was represented the Medo-Persian Empire, which existed from 538 to 331 B.C., and the thighs of brass represented the Grecian Empire, which existed from 331 to 168 B.C., and the legs, the iron legs, represented the kingdom of Rome, which existed from 168 B.C. to A.D. 476. The feet represent Europe from 476 to the present day. And finally, the toes represent 10 puppet kings that will be set up by the devil, and these puppet kings will rule for about 9 months over the world until the second coming occurs, during which time they will be destroyed. The 7th kingdom is represented in the vision as a rock that came out of the sky, and it hit the metal man and smashed it to pieces and then blew the dust away. And this rock, of course, represents the Rock of Ages. Jesus destroys the kingdoms of men at the second coming. I hope you will read Daniel 2. Okay, there are 3 things you should also know about the vision in Daniel 2. The 7 kingdoms were presented in chronological order, and to avoid any confusion, the Bible identifies the first 4 kingdoms by name. Babylon, the name can be found in Daniel 2:37 and Jeremiah 25:9. The Medo-Persian Empire can be found mentioned in Daniel 8:20, Grecia, Daniel 8:21, and Rome, Luke 3:1 and Acts 2:11. Number 2, each kingdom engulfs the previous kingdom as it rises to power. When this vision was given, the kingdom of Babylon was about the size of California, and when the Medo-Persian Empire engulfed the empire of Babylon, that kingdom was more than twice the size of Babylon. So when we get to the sixth kingdom, that is the toes, the whole world will be included. The feet of the metal man were made up of iron and clay. Unlike previous kingdoms, the kingdom of the feet represent a group of nations. Now, some nations are strong and some are weak. The feet represent Europe, a collection of nations, some strong, some weak. During the Great Tribulation, a final kingdom, represented by the toes of the metal man, will be created by the Antichrist, the devil. 10 puppet kings will be appointed and set up by Lucifer, and during their short reign of about 9 months, Jesus will return and destroy the world. Okay, the third thing you need to know about the vision in Daniel 2 is that the head, the chest, the thighs, and the legs of the metal man, the first 4 kingdoms, cover a period of 1,081 years. Now, the feet cover an even longer period of time, 1,539 years thus far, and for reasons beyond the scope of this study, I believe the final kingdom, as I said earlier, will last about 9 months, the kingdom of the toes. So I want you to look at the years of the metal man. Here's the head of gold, the chest of silver, the thighs of brass, and the legs of iron. And from start to finish, for these first 4 kingdoms, we're talking about 1,081 years, roughly a millennium. Then we come to the period of the feet of the metal man, and now we see thus far from AD 476 to the present day, it's 1,539 years. So we have a millennium and a half just in the feet. And then we come to the time of the toes, and as I've said, that's about 9 months. And then, of course, the rock. The 7th kingdom is when Jesus destroys the kingdoms of men and sets up his own kingdom. So I want you to see here approximately 26 centuries represented by the years of the metal man, and I want you to notice how long the time period is concerning the feet. Now, we've briefly examined the vision of the metal man for 2 reasons. First, you need to behold chronological order at work in apocalyptic prophecy. The timely and orderly fulfillment of Daniel 2 has been underway for 26 centuries, and it is not yet finished. The kingdom of the toes and the return of Jesus are still forthcoming. Second, I want you to see that 1798 will fit into the kingdom of the feet. The 1,539 years that have passed since the fall of the Roman Empire in AD 476 are not empty, as you might think, because the vision in Daniel 7 enlarges and repeats the vision in Daniel 2. Daniel 7 covers the same time period as the kingdoms of the metal man. God repeats the vision in Daniel 2 and enlarges the vision of the metal man by adding some very important details that we need to understand. Compare these 2 diagrams. Here's the metal man vision in Daniel 2. Here's the head, the chest, the thighs, the legs, the feet, the toes, and the rock. Okay? You see 26 centuries there. Then we come down to Daniel 7. We see the same 26 centuries, but described in a different way. More detail is given. There's the lion, the bear, the leopard, the monster. The lion represents the same thing as the head of gold. The bear represents the same thing as the chest of silver. The monster represents the same thing as the legs of iron. And the little horn power now is a force that takes up authority and exists during the time period of the feet. But the little horn is only given power 1,260 years. And then we see the 10 toes, and then we see the rock, and the beasts are thrown in the fire. So these 2 prophecies are parallels of the same time period. But God is using repetition and enlargement to help us understand, and we're going to be looking at 1798, how it fits into the time period of the feet. It's brought out, strangely enough, in Daniel 7. During the period of the feet, a prophetic development takes place which can be easily verified in history. I don't have time in this seminar to explain this topic in detail, so if you wish to study further into this matter, please visit our website and just do a search for 1260 years. The prophecy in Daniel 2 teaches that after the kingdom of the legs falls, the kingdom of the feet begins. And during the kingdom of the feet, a new kind of power rises out of the ashes of the old Roman Empire. History confirms this new power was the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church rose to power in an odd way. The Emperor Justinian wanted to rebuild the old Roman Empire, and he thought the best way to get the job done was by expelling or killing everyone who was not a Christian. In AD 533, Justinian appointed the Pope to determine who was Orthodox, that is, who was a Christian, and who was not. But the Pope was not in a position to help Justinian for another 5 years. Finally, after some battles were won and the enemies of the Pope had been defeated, the Church came into a position of religious and civil authority. Therefore, it is said that the Roman Catholic Church rose to power out of the ashes of the old Roman Empire because of Justinian's desire to rebuild the old Roman Empire. So what does this have to do with 1798? Well, Daniel 7:25 indicates the little horn, that is the Roman Catholic Church, would have authority over Europe for 1260 years, have authority over the feet, the nations of Europe, for 1260 years. And history says this authority ended in February 1798 during the French Revolution, which began in 1789 and ended in 1799, when Napoleon's forces captured the Pope and put him in exile. When this historical event took place, Europe was set free of papal authority. After 1,260 years, the nations of Europe were no longer subjects of church dominion or authority. And why is this date important? Thousands of years ago, God linked a very important event in heaven with the overthrow of the papacy on earth, and the year is 1798. If you think the exile of the Pope is big news, the heaven-earth linkage law reveals even bigger news. Well, I'm out of time for today. Please bookmark and share this video with your friends and proceed to the next segment.